Hi everyone, Catherine here from Ink Cat. I came across in my craft room these stickers. They're like chipboard stickers and they're quite thick and chunky. I have had them for donkey's years, no idea how long. And then I remembered I'd also got this ephemera type journaling bits and pieces pad. I have used this on a video before and I'm doing a very similar technique, to be honest, to what I used it for then, which is to make a like patchwork background. But I actually ended up making 4 cards doing this. So first of all, grabbing each of the sheets of the ephemera type stuff and just chopping them apart. I do have to get my scissors out occasionally, but mainly I managed to do it using the trimmer. I'm not really concerned about whether I get sort of like vintagey edges or anything, because I kind of want straight lines. It'll help make the patchwork a bit easier. But some of them have been printed and they're just slightly offset from each other because they are, I'm assuming, prints of original pieces of ephemera that people have found. So yeah, I chopped these all up. Here you go, this is where I go in with my scissors just to get one panel out of the way because it was going to cut through it otherwise. But yeah, I basically chopped up loads of these pieces and I kind of chose mainly pages in the book that I'd already cut into in one way or another, just because it makes it easier and it makes me feel like I'm using something up that's part used. No need to do that. And I wasn't really thinking about colour tones or texts on them. Now I must admit I do end up with that blue piece that's just there, that one. I don't end up using that on any of the cards, but I do make up a panel from some of the last bits of scraps. I've just not yet found a use for it, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now the next thing is to do some ink blending on all of the edges just to help to define the edges, but I could not find my brown blending brush. Then I found it. It's because I'd not put it away. Yeah, that's what happens if you don't put things away, you can't find them. I just used vintage photo for every single one of these, and you'll see sometimes I'm going quite dark, sometimes I'm missing patches. I'm literally just going around a little bit just to give some edge to each of the panels. Also, this helps if I've slightly miscut, as in there's just a little bit of the white showing that's from the paper that it's been printed onto, that gets rid of this. So it doesn't take me too long. I do end up with inky fingers. I am looking at my hands now as I'm doing this voiceover, and yeah, I need to go and give them a good scrub. But you know, that's me. I don't mind a bit of messy crafting. So after I have inked them all up, you'll see to the left hand side I've got some panels of peach cardstock. I'm not choosing peach because that's the colour I want it to be. It's just this is literally a background, and these are scrap pieces of cardstock that came out of my daughter's bedroom. She had pilfered them at some point from my room. I have no idea when, and I think she was intending to turn these into like index cards for revision cards. She didn't. I'm not sure what that says about my daughter and her revision methods. But yeah, so all I've done is use these as the base panel to stick all of the pieces to. I go over each panel with my ATG, trying to get a reasonable coverage of adhesive, but not 100% adhesive. Obviously, if you had those adhesive packs, that would probably work, where you've got a whole sheet of adhesive. That would probably be better, but I don't have those, so I'm making most of what I've got. And I'm literally just grabbing pieces and trying to get them to kind of line up. There's a couple of bits where they slightly overlap, but most of the time I've managed to get them to line up. And then I just go round with my scissors and trim off the excess. Now at this point I realised that these panels were not the same size, so I wasn't going to be able to use them exactly as they are. So I did know that at this point I was also going to use my trimmer to just trim down the edges. Now sometimes by this point I am going into the bits that I've cut off just to do some filling the gaps in, because I thought, oh, I might not have quite cut enough out and I didn't really want to have to go back and start inking again. But yeah, I managed to do it using both the panels that I had cut out and the ones that were just off cuts from on the side. Right, what else do I need to tell you? Do I need to tell you anything else about making the backgrounds? No, that's probably it. Once I have cut them out, I then decide I want to add a little bit more ink, and I decide that I want an ink splatter. So I take that vintage photo again, press it onto an acrylic block and a bit of water, and then I just take my fan brush and I do a bit of splatter across. But I decided it wasn't quite enough, so I decided to just splodge it down using kind of like it's a kind of Tim Holtzy technique. It's a little bit like the packaging technique, but I'm using the acrylic block, and this just gave me some larger splodges of brown. And at that point, I decided I actually wanted it to be a bit shimmery. So I took the Magnolia of the Kingston Crafts sprays. I got myself an empty box. And I know you might be going, but that's clearly a useful box. I'm not using it at this point in time, and I don't really mind that it's got a bit of shimmer in it. Sometimes I went a bit heavy with the spritz, so I got a big patch of the goldy colour. So this Magnolia is a lovely gold colour. Sometimes it's a little bit lighter and there's not so much of the mica spray on it's just sort of more of a misting. Other ones, it's sort of like a real splodgy element. I did have to take my heat tool just to do it a little bit to make sure I had got rid of most of the liquid off it. It wasn't completely dry, but it was almost completely dry. And at this point, I am actually trimmed down all the panels so that they're the same size, which will fit nicely on my A6 card blanks that I'm going to cut later on in this video, but with a lovely border. Now, onto these panels. So I'm looking at it and working out that actually they're quite wide. There is one that I do stick to it being all the way across, which is that gratitude one. As a vertical card, but for this one I did end up going with taking it so that it was a landscape rather than portrait card. Now you'll see I took my pencil and just marked where I would want notches in the sides, and I do this quite often when I'm using twine. It's to try and stop the cardstock from ripping, but it also gives it a nice like finished edge. Is I sort of like cut a little notch into the side. And I'm using my grid mat underneath the card panel there to just make sure that they're even on both sides. And it just helps me to wrap the string around, or in this case the wax thread around, and sort of slot it into place, if that makes sense. It stops the cardstock from tearing, which I don't think it would have done anyway because it's quite thick, because it's got those layers on it, but it does just help it a little bit. The third one, I went with this gratitude, and I did take it off, and it got kind of like a little hole in it, as if it was perfect for stringing something through. So I turned it into a sort of tag, and at this point I decided actually I've not edged the panels and I wanted to edge them with something darker. So I took the Early Espresso ink to edge them. So I did have to take that one off again, which was fine. It just had caught a little bit. So I did end up using glue to make sure it definitely glued into place. And then I inked up all of the other ones. The final one is only a small sentiment. It's just that little hello. I decided I didn't want to use the other 2 sentiments that were in that pack. I didn't think that this design of background worked for a congratulations card. And I just can't imagine me using one the one that says friends like you, or something. I can't remember what it actually says, something like that. I just couldn't imagine me using that particular sentiment. It just didn't seem right. So I decided not to use those. I was only using the 4, but that meant this little one had got like the hello on it. So I created a nest underneath of the string, the wax thread, and then did this sort of like cross pattern across the whole thing. And then I'm just going to put a healthy amount of glue on it. And you'll see in a minute, I do manage to sort of move it around and fiddle with it a bit. I'd got these little pieces that were left over, so one of them I stuck down. Yeah, that was me messing around, so I've put something heavy on it to try and help that glue to set. But yeah, one piece I did add on to the card, and then the other one, which was that blue, I ended up making this smaller panel just from the offcuts. I haven't found a use for this yet. it's gone into my pouch that's got like all my stripy panels. Hopefully people have seen those on previous videos. When I have like little strips of cardstock left, I just create stripy panels and then I'll use them on a future card. So it's gone into that because it's pretty much that sort of technique of just piecing together some bits and pieces. I layered up a few elements, and then this is like a small card panel, and that's the one that I add that little blue element onto. So it'll be perfect for adding a sentiment to on maybe another card with maybe an embossed background or something. But for the moment, I'm just going to set that aside. I don't end up using it. So I picked these two pieces of brown cardstock, and one of them's actually got a weird sort of like watermark stain on it. I don't quite know why, but it's fine because I cover that up. I don't know where that cardstock's come from. It's a little bit on the thinner side. It'll be fine because I've put in the layers on both the front and then the panel on the inside. It will be fine. But yeah, I don't quite know where I've got that brown cardstock from. It certainly isn't a Stampin' Up one. Now this gratitude one, that sticker is going to hang over, the gratitude is just going to hang over the edge. Probably needs a slightly wider envelope, which is fine. I'll just stick it in a 5x7, it really won't matter. But I did add the embossing buddy powder just to the back of that sticker that was hanging off so that it doesn't retain its stick. And then this is just the final stages of me just adding some panels to the inside. I ummed and ahed about adding some final bits of ephemera and then decided against it. There weren't enough pieces and I really couldn't be bothered to cut any more out to add onto the inside. So I would normally do that, but in this case I decided against it. So that's my 4 cards done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed those. These are the close-up photos. Really nice to use something that's probably been in my stash for about 8 years, maybe longer. Yeah, maybe longer. In fact, probably has been longer. So it was nice to use those stickers up. Obviously, I've still got 2 left. I think they're going to go in the to-go pile. I don't think I'm going to keep them, so they'll probably be gifted to somebody at some point. But also really enjoyed making those backgrounds. They're such fun to put these together, and it was nice to make some use of them. Previous video I made with this was Make It Masculine. I think these are suitable for males or females, probably slightly more girly coloured. These ones, there's a little bit more pinks to them, although that one definitely doesn't have any pink, but I do think that they'll work for both. So please check that video out. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, bye bye.